It's gonna be a bumpy ride with Harry Potter 3, The Prisoner of Azkaban, which is one of my favourite movies in the Harry Potter franchise. This is a movie I love to go back and rewatch. It's one of my most rewatched films, not just in the series alone, but of all time. It's a movie that, when I watched as a kid, it was one of those movies that, for me, forged my love for movies that I wanted to go back and rewatch and wanted to analyse bits of the story and understand some of the bits and how the directing um, accounted for this and how it all matches up. And it's one of those early films in my childhood that I used to go back and watch all the time because I knew there was something else there, some depth that I could analyse and look in. And I think it's movies like this, like Prisoner of Azkaban, that are really some of the reasons why I love films as much as I do. I love this movie absolutely, and rewatching it holds up so well. Right off the bat, I'm going to get into spoilers in Prisoner of Azkaban, so if you've never seen it, watch it down the Harry Potter films. But this movie starts off immediately with a comedic sequence where he blows up his aunt into a big balloon, and it's really funny. And this movie gradually gets darker and darker and darker and more intense as it goes along. And it starts off quite cheerful, another happy year at Hogwarts, and it constantly gets deeper and darker as it goes on. And because we get like the night bus scene next, which is extremely exciting. We get the book that tries to eat him, and all these extremely fun sequences. But there's still a level of terror there. Sirius Black, the dog he sees at the start of the movie, this eeriness we see at the start. And a lot of the reasons why this movie is so great is because of Alfonso Cuarón, who is a brilliant director, directed some excellent movies, and his direction style is so unique in this movie. He's able to pull off something that still captures the magic of what the first two films set up, and still directed in a very obscure way where it was many subtle moments that are done really well. He's able to pay very close attention to detail in all of his little directing nods, and we see shots here that you wouldn't usually see in the first two films, some really unique takes on things that I think are really well done. And it takes the formula that the first two set up and basically perfects it in every single way. And that's what I love about Prisoner of Azkaban so much, along with some other really awesome things that it does later on in the film, which I'll talk to you about later. But one of my most interesting things in this movie is how it just gets intense from the get-go. We have this really lighthearted first 10-15 minutes, and then as soon as we get on our Hogwarts train, the Dementor comes in, and we get that scene where everything just goes cold all of a sudden. It's this subtleness, this like, okay, we're in for another fun Harry Potter adventure, and then this subtleness as it gets darker and darker. And Harry looks over his reflection in the train window, and it's just completely blue and blisk. It is utterly brilliant direction, and how this movie is directed is really intriguingly, the way it sets up the tension, and the way it also uses its storytelling to impact the later half of the movie, which of course includes time travel, which I've always wondered one thing about this movie is that the time travel stuff in this film he never brings back up. Hermione never uses her time travel tricks again, yet they would have probably been very useful in some other scenes in later movies. Probably should have used that later on, but that aside, I think the time travel aspect of this movie is by far the most interesting bit, because we see this entire movie play out. We see this entire segment play out in front of us, and then we see it again, and all those little coincidences that we previously saw are now improved because we understand how they happen. Because there's a lot of little coincidences that happen throughout this entire movie, and you're like, okay, why did that happen? Why did that happen? And rewatching it, you're able to just pinpoint all those little bits and add them up in your head, and as you watch this entire finale take place, it is so exciting as things start to connect together so well and things start to make sense. It's one of those just excellent movie finales that just blows me away, and I'm blown away every single time I watch it. I'm impressed. I've seen this movie hundreds of times, but every single time I watch it, I'm impressed by that segment of the movie. Also, we get introduced to the new professor. Each film usually introduces a new professor of the dark arts, and this one we get Professor Lupin, who is revealed to be a werewolf. I love the scene where they're doing the ridiculous with the Boggarts, and he then walks up quickly to it, and it shows a picture of the moon, which is a great subtle reference to him then later turning into a werewolf and him being afraid of the moon. There's some really clever little setups there with his character, and of course the setup of Sirius Black, which of course is revealed. It's sort of like a mentor to Harry, not this villain who's trying to kill him. That's actually Peter Pettigrew hiding as Ron's rat. Some very interesting storytelling techniques there. And what I love about Sirius, he's built up so well in this movie as a terror, as a threat, someone who is threatening this entire school, and it's really frightening. And Dumbledore is scared, Snape is scared, and you feel tense that this person is getting closer to Harry. And what I love about that scene where they go straight into the house from the Whomping Willow, of course, and we see Lupin then side with Sirius, and we're just in like a complete awe. The camera's shaking, the characters are wondering what's happening, everything is revealed so quickly and intensely. Things are just said and done like it would normally do. We don't get a scene of just exposition. We get characters just talking, and we have to sort of figure out how this is working, and it sort of just adjusts to it. This is extremely clever storytelling and intense building from what is a children's adventure time travel movie about a school with magic wizards. And it's so intense and it's so well done, and I love it. Also, this movie introduces some brilliant themes by John Williams. Unfortunately, this was the last Harry Potter film he scored, but he went out with an amazing one. We have Buckbeak's Flight, a beautiful piece of music that gives me chills. And most importantly, Window to the Past, which is one of the most emotional movie tracks I've ever heard. It really is emotional. It's a light-hearted tone that feels light and happy, but at the same time is like an air of sadness and melancholy, which in my opinion just personifies this entire franchise, and that is one of the most beautiful themes. And this entire finale is so intense, and the setup for it is also really well done, especially with the time travel bits. The scenes at the start where Hermione's just randomly popping up in lessons, and Ron's like, how the hell are you popping up in these lessons? And it could be anything. It could be just a little joke, but then we learn that she's time traveling, she knows more about lessons than anyone else. And it's interesting setup there, and I love that. At night when Professor Lupin's in his office, he has all the windows shut so he doesn't turn into a werewolf. All these little bits, all these little details that you can pick out and understand later on are done so well in this movie, and it's one of the things that I really appreciate about it. But at the same time, it is extremely fun. It's extremely exciting, and also the pacing. The first two Harry Potter films were very slow-paced. They took a while to get into their stories. This one gets straight into its story and is extremely fast-moving. There's rarely a break in the pace in any way for me. It's so well-paced, so brisk, so movemental, and it doesn't feel long at all. And one of the beauties behind that is that it immerses you immediately. And that immersion is just absolutely brilliant. This movie, I know I said it's really dark, because it does have a lot of dark elements. It's definitely the darkest Harry Potter film we've seen so far. But one of the things I love about this movie is that it's able to actually attune the humour as well.
Spiders, they want me to tap dance. I don't want to tap dance.
You tell those spiders, Ron.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell.
Ron waking up in the middle of the night while Harry's reading his map and saying, like, about spiders, screaming about spiders or whatever. Why does that have to be in there? It doesn't. But it's hilarious, and it works. You feel like you're there along for the mystery, along for the ride, tense for what is about to happen. Prisoner of Azkaban develops the characters, it matures these kids. And like Chamber of Secrets was all about, it sort of removed Hermione from the finale and had Ron and Harry. This one sort of removes Ron from the finale and gives us Harry and Hermione instead. So I like that change of pace. He is so well directed. Alfonso Cuarón definitely brings something to the table that a lot of Harry Potter films aren't able to do. He directs it so swiftly. Now, do I have issues with Prisoner of Azkaban? I do have a couple. There are, I used to give it like my highest grade. I'm not going to now. But there are literally little nitpicks. Nothing big at all. Sometimes towards the start of the movie, it can drag just a tiny little bit, but it sets up the immersion quite well. I think it could have set Sirius Black up at the start just a little more intriguingly. And the final shot of the film, where we have that freeze frame of Harry flying on the broom and his face, is a little cheesy. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like it, but it's a little off to me. Prisoner of Azkaban, to me, is definitely the most rewatched and best directed film in the entire Harry Potter franchise. It's not my favourite in the Harry Potter franchise, but it is definitely the best directed and written. And it's much more thrilling, darker and intense. than its predecessors. It starts off something fun, then turns into something really unique and exciting. It builds up the tension, sets up the immersivity, explores the character depth. It has some great emotional beats with Sirius and Harry. It has a lot of humor when needed. It's one of the greater films in this franchise. It's chilling. I get chills in this movie constantly. It's brilliantly directed. There's so many nuances to it that seem like plot conveniences at the start, then when given more weight when the context is revealed, is extremely exciting. The final half includes some brilliant, smart time travel aspects that blow me away every single time. How this story unravels is so well done. There's such many clever plot elements in this film to look back upon. I only have a few nitpicks with this movie. It's an exceptional Harry Potter film. It's probably my second favourite of the franchise, even though I think it is the best directed. I'm going to give Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban an A. I'm also going to give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. This movie is so close to my highest score, but I love it. It is amazing. If you guys let me know what you think about the Prisoner of Azkaban down below, and of course, thanks for watching, and goodbye.
You tell those spiders wrong.